welcome to Dream Calm. You are safe here. You are calm here. This is your place to drift, to let go of the day, and to wander into the world of story. Tonight, we journey into Runeterra, into the twin cities that shine and shadow above one another, Piltover and Zaun, where light and darkness entwine, and where one girl became a legend of chaos. Her name is Jinx. But before we meet her, before we follow her trail of fireworks, mischief, and madness, we must first set the stage, slowly, gently, so you may drift into this world as though into a dream. Close your eyes and breathe in and out. Let your breath match the slow rhythm of my words. Let your mind open to the world of Runeterra. Above us, high upon the cliffs, rests Piltover, the gleaming city of progress. Its towers rise like steel and glass fingers reaching for the sky. Its bridges stretch in elegant arcs across canals. Its streets are alive with invention, with merchants, with the sound of gears and steam. This is a place of order, a place of ambition, where invention and wealth intertwine. Below it, in the deep chasms, hidden in the shadows, lies Zaun. Zaun is not a mirror, but a shadow of Piltover. Here, the air is thick with smoke. Pipes drip with chemicals. Factories churn through the night, their fires painting the darkness with dull orange glow. The people here live in alleys crowded with neon light, among fumes and metal and ceaseless sound. This is a place of survival, of invention born of necessity, of freedom mixed with danger. Together, Piltover and Zaun form two halves of a coin, one above, orderly, glittering, proud, one below, chaotic, free, dangerous, alive, and between them, tension always simmers. It is in Zaun, among fumes and factories, among alleys glowing with unstable lights, that Jinx was born. Before she was chaos incarnate, before her name was whispered in fear and fascination, Jinx was simply a girl who lived in a world of shadows and steam, a girl who grew restless under the weight of a city that never slept. She saw Piltover above, glittering, perfect, smug. She saw Zaun below, struggling, striving, overlooked, and in her heart, something began to stir, restless energy, a spark that would not be contained. But for now, let us stay in the world around her. Let us walk through Zaun's streets, slowly, gently. We see the bridges of iron stretching between high stacks of factories. We see pipes hissing steam into the air, valves clanking, gears turning endlessly. The light here is never natural. It is always tinted by neon green shimmer of chem lamps, or the red glow of furnaces. The air carries the scent of oil, of smoke, of strange alchemical fumes. Children run through the alleys, their laughter echoing, their hands stained with soot. Merchants call from stalls, selling tools, scrap metal, and vials of glowing chemicals. Above, catwalks cross in tangled webs, shadowy figures moving along them. Zaun is alive, but it is not gentle. It is a place where survival means creativity, and where brilliance often mixes with madness. And above, Piltover stands in contrast, let us rise slowly, as if drifting upward through the haze, past the cliffs, into the light of Piltover. Here, the air is cleaner, fresher, filled with the sound of birds and bells. The streets are paved with cobblestones that gleam in sunlight. Brass rails and polished gears shine in shop windows. Merchants trade not in scraps, but in fine goods, silk, spices, inventions gleaming with hextech crystals. The people of Piltover walk with confidence. Engineers carry schematics rolled under their arms. Enforcers patrol in crisp uniforms, their boots striking the stones with steady rhythm. The city glows with pride, ambition, and invention. And yet, even here in the shining city, whispers of Zaun drift upward, for the two are bound. One cannot exist without the other. It is here, between light and shadow, order and chaos, that Jinx's story begins. Her tale is not one of calm, not one of peace, but of energy, of fire, of mischief. And yet, told slowly, gently, as we do tonight, her chaos becomes a lullaby. Her story becomes a dream. For this is dream calm, where even the wildest tales become soft enough to carry you into sleep. Close your eyes and picture the city below the cliffs. Zaun, sprawling, tangled, alive. It is here, in the heart of shadow and smoke, that Jinx's earliest days began. The streets of Zaun are never quiet, not even in the deepest hours of night. Pipes groan as pressure builds. Valves release bursts of steam with sudden hisses. Gears grind, furnaces roar, and somewhere in the distance, always there is laughter, or shouting, or the clatter of footsteps along metal bridges. For a child, Zaun is both a playground and a danger. Every alley holds secrets, every rooftop a view, every tunnel a path to somewhere unknown. Jinx, though she was not yet called by that name, was restless even then. A small figure darting between the crowds, hair tangled, eyes wide with curiosity. Her hands were never still, always pulling apart scraps of machinery, always fitting pipes together, always tinkering with things others had thrown away. She laughed easily, yet even her laughter carried a wild edge, a sound that made others turn their heads, unsure whether it was the giggle of a child or the spark of something untamed. The Zaun of her childhood was filled with contrasts. There were markets where vendors sold glowing vials of chemlights, strange powders, humming contraptions made from salvaged parts. Children bartered for broken toys, only to remake them into new creations. Shadows hid danger, but they also hid possibility. Jinx ran through those markets, weaving between stalls, slipping through crowds, always faster, always laughing. She would steal bits of scrap not for need, but for the thrill, pieces of wire, shards of crystal, chunks of broken gear. Back in a hidden corner, she would piece them together. Not carefully, not precisely, but with the joyful recklessness of a child who saw no limits. Sometimes they sparked to life, glowing, humming, spinning. Sometimes they burst into smoke, fizzled into sparks. And she would laugh all the harder, for even as a child, She delighted not only in creation, but in chaos. The people of Zaun noticed her. To some, she was just another child of the undercity. Small, scrappy, wild, running underfoot as they worked. To others, she was a nuisance, the little girl who tampered with pipes, who snatched things from market stalls, who painted symbols on walls and vanished before she could be caught. But to a few, she was something different, a spark of energy that could not be contained, a fire that burned brighter than the shadows around her. Her laughter echoed through the alleys, wild, unpredictable, impossible to ignore. Zaun itself shaped her. She learned quickly that the city was both friend and foe. The pipes could burst, scalding with steam. Yet they could also carry her weight as she balanced and ran above the streets. The factories belched smoke that stung her eyes. Yet their discarded scraps gave her toys, gave her inventions, gave her delight. The people scowled, cursed, sometimes struck out at her, yet she slipped away, too quick, too clever, leaving behind a mocking laugh. The city was alive, and Jinx was alive with it. There are those who say Jinx was always touched with madness, that from the moment she could walk, she carried chaos in her heart. But others see her differently. As a child of Zaun, shaped by the noise, the fumes, the shadows, the freedom, she was not madness. She was energy without limit, in a world that gave her no boundaries. She chased colors in the dark, splashing paint where walls were gray, drawing shapes, leaving marks, laughing as the city itself became her canvas. She followed sounds, rhythms of machinery, the beat of hammers on metal, the hiss of steam, the hum of chem pumps. These became her music, and she danced to it, twirling through alleys, balancing on railings, throwing sparks into the air as if each one were a star. Yet even as she played, shadows gathered around her life. Zaun was not kind to its children. Factories demanded labor. Streets demanded toughness. Survival demanded cunning. Every child grew quickly. Every child learned to run, to fight, to steal, to endure. And Jinx learned these lessons well. She slipped past enforcers, ducking into tunnels too small for grown men. She fought with other children, wild scrambles of fists and shouts, never yielding, always laughing. She survived where others struggled, not because she was stronger, but because she never stopped moving, never stopped thinking, never stopped turning the chaos into a game. Piltover loomed above her. She would climb to the highest points of Zaun, stand on the railings of catwalks, and look upward. The light from above seemed impossibly distant, the shining towers of Piltover like stars she could almost touch. She wondered what it would be like there, to walk clean streets, to breathe fresh air, to see invention celebrated, not scavenged. But even then, she knew she did not belong in that world. Her laughter was too loud, her hands too quick, her mind too restless. She belonged to Zaun, and Zaun belonged to her. In these early years, the girl who would become Jinx began to shape herself, not as a villain, not as a criminal, not yet as the chaos bringer, but as a restless spirit, A spark in the shadows, a giggle in the fumes, a streak of color in a world of smoke and gray. Zaun had given her life, and soon she would give Zaun her legend. The child of Zaun grew into a girl who could no longer be contained. She ran faster than the rest, climbed higher, laughed louder. Her hair grew long, tangled, streaked with colors that caught the neon lights. Her eyes burned brighter, restless, filled with ideas. Where others saw Zaun's dangers as threats, she saw them as challenges. Pipes to balance on, furnaces to leap across, tunnels to explore. Every risk was a game, and every game became a thrill. It was in these years that Jinx began to change. Her tinkering became more daring. What once were harmless toys of wire and gears became contraptions that hissed, sparked, sometimes burst in small explosions. She would set them loose in alleys, laugh as startled cats scattered, as sparks fizzed and pipes rattled. Her laughter echoed louder, and those who heard it began to whisper her name. The first sparks of chaos came not from hatred, but from play. She painted walls with wild colors, spraying glowing paint across gray stone. She strung wires between rooftops, sending lights flickering in strange patterns. She left behind marks, swirling symbols, mocking faces, jagged stars, reminders that she had passed through, unseen, untouchable. At first, the people of Zaun shrugged. Another restless youth, another troublemaker. But her tricks grew bolder. She jammed gears in factory doors, halting work for hours. She filled chempipes with colored powder, so that smoke burst out in shades of pink and blue, startling workers and staining the streets. She slipped small contraptions under market stalls, setting them to rattle and squeal until merchants fled in frustration. Everywhere she went, laughter followed, sometimes hers, sometimes the nervous chuckles of those watching her chaos unfold, and always the whispers grew louder. But play has edges, and Zaun is a place where edges cut deep. One night, she built something new, a device of tubes and crystals, small but unstable. She wound it, lit it, and tossed it into a quiet street. The explosion was larger than she expected. The ground shook, windows shattered, people screamed. For the first time, her laughter faltered, not from guilt, but from exhilaration, the sound, the shock, the sudden chaos. It thrilled her in ways she had not expected. And from that night onward, her toys became weapons. Piltover began to take notice. The enforcers, those crisp uniformed keepers of order, heard of the girl with wild eyes and wilder inventions. Reports trickled in, markets disrupted, factories halted, explosions rattling pipes. At first, they dismissed her as a nuisance, a prankster from Zaun, beneath their notice. But when her chaos began to reach their borders, when smoke from her fireworks drifted into Piltover's clean air, when her graffiti appeared near their gates, they grew uneasy. For Piltover prided itself on order, on progress, neat and controlled. And this girl from below threatened that image with every spark, every blast, every mocking laugh. In Zaun, she became a symbol. To some, she was a hero, a girl who mocked Piltover's arrogance, who showed that even a single restless soul could shake the gears of progress. To others, she was a menace, reckless, dangerous, a spark that might set the whole city aflame. But to herself, she was simply Jinx. The name clung to her, born from whispers, from curses, from warnings shouted when her toys went off in sudden bursts. She embraced it, painted it on walls, scrawled it in bright colors across rooftops. Her name became her banner, her laughter its anthem. These were her teenage years, when mischief became mayhem, when invention became weapon, when laughter became legend. The girl of Zaun was gone. In her place, Jinx was born. In every story of chaos, there is a shadow of something lost. In every spark of laughter, there is an echo of something broken. And in Jinx's story, that shadow, that echo, is her sister. Her name was Vi. Vi was older, stronger, steadier. She grew up in the same streets, the same alleys, the same smoke-filled air of Zaun. But where Jinx scattered, Vi steadied. Where Jinx laughed, Vi clenched her jaw and endured. They were sisters, bound by blood, but shaped by different pieces of the same city. Vi learned to fight early, fists hardened in street brawls, knuckles bloodied against those who threatened her. She became a protector, even as a child, stepping between danger and those weaker than her. She had a strength that made others follow, and a will that made others trust. Jinx was different. Her strength was not in her fists, but in her mind. Her restless energy, her unpredictable spark. Where Vi solved problems by force, Jinx solved them by turning them upside down, twisting them until they no longer made sense, until laughter was the only answer. Together, they were unstoppable. Two halves of a whole, balance in opposition, chaos and order bound as sisters. But balance is fragile. Vi grew serious. Jinx grew wild. Vi looked to protect. Jinx looked to disrupt. The same city that had given them both life began to pull them apart. Some say Jinx adored Vi, that she followed her older sister like a shadow, wide-eyed and eager. Others say she envied her, resented her strength, her authority, the way others looked to her as a leader. The truth may be both, for love and resentment often live side by side. There were moments, quiet moments, when the two were simply sisters, sharing food in a crowded corner, laughing as they raced across rooftops, sitting together in silence, listening to the hum of Zaun around them. But those moments grew fewer as Jinx's chaos grew greater. Her tricks became more dangerous, her explosions louder, her laughter wilder. Vi tried to guide her, to pull her back, to protect her from herself. But Jinx did not want protection. She wanted freedom. And so the rift grew. Legends say their bond broke in violence, in tragedy, that Vi could no longer follow her sister into madness. And Jinx could no longer forgive Vi for choosing the world over her. The details blur, lost in shadow. But the truth is clear. Where once they were sisters side by side, now they were enemies face to face. Vi became an enforcer, climbing upward into Piltover, wearing gauntlets of steel, carrying the weight of justice on her shoulders. Jinx became an outlaw, painting the walls with her name, filling the skies with fire, mocking every law, every enforcer, every attempt at order. The bond of sisters became the clash of rivals. And yet, even as they fought, something remained, a thread that could not be cut, a memory of shared laughter, of childhood shadows, of moments when they had been one. For Jinx, Vi was not just an enemy. She was the wound that never healed, the voice in the back of her mind, the ghost she could not silence. Her laughter grew louder, wilder, desperate to drown out that ghost. But deep inside, perhaps a part of her still longed for the sister she had lost. And for Vi, Jinx was not just another criminal, not just another outlaw. She was family, a sister, a part of herself she could neither forgive nor forget. Every clash between them carried more than battle. It carried memory, sorrow, the ache of what might have been. This is the heart of Jinx's chaos. Not simply a hunger for mischief, not simply delight in destruction, but a wound, a fracture left by the loss of her sister. Her laughter is wild, but behind it there is silence. Her chaos is relentless, but behind it there is grief. Jinx and Vi, two sisters of Zaun, forever bound, forever divided. Jinx had grown, no longer a restless child, no longer just a mischievous girl. She had become something more, something the whole city could no longer ignore. Her name was painted on walls, splashed across alleys, bridges, and factory doors. Her laughter echoed in the night, following bursts of fire and smoke. Her inventions, once small toys, now shook buildings, rattled streets, lit up the sky in explosions of blue and pink. Zaun knew her, Piltover knew her, and neither city could remain unchanged. In Zaun, she was both legend and warning. To the young, she was a hero, a wild spark who showed that even one girl could mock Piltover's enforcers, could paint color across gray walls, could laugh in the face of power. Children whispered her name as they raced through alleys, playing games where they pretended to be Jinx, tossing imaginary bombs, leaving behind trails of laughter. To the old, she was a menace, reckless, dangerous, dragging trouble down upon Zaun's already burdened streets. They shook their heads, cursed her name, and prayed her chaos would not bring Piltover's wrath upon them all. But whatever they thought of her, none could deny her. Jinx was part of Zaun, as much as the smoke, as much as the neon, as much as the endless hum of machines. In Piltover, she was something else entirely, a threat. The enforcers filed report after report. Markets disrupted, bridges blocked, shipments stolen, factories halted. Explosions that rattled even Piltover's polished towers, graffiti mocking their leaders sprayed on walls where no one could explain how she had reached. Her crimes were unpredictable. No clear pattern, no clear goal. Sometimes she stole. Sometimes she destroyed. Sometimes she did nothing but laugh as chaos unfolded. To Piltover, she was not simply a criminal. she was an insult, for Piltover prided itself on progress, on order, on control, and Jinx was everything they feared: disorder, chaos, unpredictability. It was in these years that Jinx began to clash with Caitlin Karaman, the sheriff of Piltover, daughter of a noble house, raised among wealth and order, but hardened into a hunter, a tracker, a woman who sought truth and justice. She studied Jinx's crimes, traced her steps, followed her trails of graffiti and sparks. She read the patterns in chaos, saw the meaning in mischief, and pursued her with relentless determination. Caitlin was not like Vi. Her pursuit carried no memory, no sisterhood. For Caitlin, Jinx was a case to be solved, a threat to be ended, a storm to be contained. And so the dance began. Jinx would strike, an explosion here, a factory painted in neon flames, a shipment of hextech crystals stolen. And Caitlin would follow, setting traps, laying ambushes, tracing the faintest signs through smoke and shadow. Sometimes Caitlin was close enough to see her, a flash of wild hair, a laugh echoing through the night, a streak of blue vanishing across rooftops. But always, Jinx escaped, slipping through cracks, ducking into alleys, vanishing in chaos of her own making. Their rivalry became as much a story as Jinx herself, the outlaw and the law, the chaos and the order, locked in endless chase. And in the shadows, Vi too returned to the hunt. No longer simply a sister, no longer just a girl from Zaun. Vi had risen into Piltover's enforcers, fists clad in massive gauntlets of steel, her will as unbreakable as her punches. When she met Caitlin, they found common cause. Together, they hunted Jinx. But for Vi, the chase was not only duty, it was personal. Every time she heard Jinx's laugh, every time she saw her graffiti splashed across walls, every time she chased her through streets only the two of them had once known, she felt the wound of sisterhood cut open again. Her fists clenched harder, her heart ached sharper, and Jinx, seeing her sister in uniform, standing for Piltover, for order, for everything she despised, only laughed louder. The city was divided. In Piltover, Jinx became the face of outlaw chaos, her wanted posters plastered across walls, her bounty growing with every crime. In Zaun, she became the whispered name in alleyways, the wild figure painted in neon on crumbling walls. The spark children followed in games, and to herself, she became more than a girl. Jinx became a storm. She did not plan, she did not plot. She did not seek wealth or power. She sought only the thrill, the laughter, the release. Her explosions were her music, her graffiti her signature, her laughter her anthem. She was not fighting a war. She was not seeking victory. She was simply being Jinx. And as the cities raged, hunted, whispered, feared, and followed, she danced among them, unstoppable, unpredictable, unforgettable. There are many stories told of Jinx. Some say she is mad. Others say she is brilliant. Some call her a villain. Others, a visionary of chaos. But to truly understand Jinx, one must step softly into her mind, close your eyes, and imagine the city as she sees it. To you, Zaun might appear dark, filled with fumes, choked by pipes and smoke. To you, Piltover might shine with order, polished brass and clean cobblestones. But to Jinx, the world is never so still. Every light is brighter, every sound sharper, every color louder. The hiss of steam is not a noise of machines. It is a song. The burst of sparks from a broken pipe is not danger. It is firework. The scrawl of paint on a wall is not vandalism. It is art. Her world is alive with endless motion. Every corner whispers with possibility. Every shadow hides not fear, but potential. When Jinx walks through Zaun, she does not see factories and fumes. She sees canvases waiting for color. She sees gears waiting to be broken, just to watch how the pieces fall. She sees alleys that could become mazes of laughter, rooftops that could become stages for her fireworks. Where others see order, she sees prison. Where others see law, she sees chains. Where others see rules, she sees jokes waiting to be told. And so she laughs. Her laughter is her music. It bursts from her without warning, high and wild, echoing down the alleys, bouncing off walls, startling those who hear it. Some say it is madness, but perhaps it is the purest honesty, a sound that carries every spark of her heart. Joy, pain, memory, loss, all twisted into a melody that cannot be silenced. Her mind is a storm. Thoughts crash into one another like waves. Ideas spark like lightning, too fast to hold, too fierce to tame. One moment she is quiet, focused, tinkering with gears and wires. The next, she is painting neon faces across factory walls, or throwing sparks into the air just to see them dance. There is no pause, no stillness, no silence, except, perhaps, when she thinks of her sister. Vi lives in her memory like a wound that never closes. Sometimes Jinx mocks her, paints her face in caricature on walls, cackles as she imagines her frustration. But sometimes, when the city is quiet, when the fires burn low and the alleys fall silent, her laughter fades, and in that silence, the memory of Vi whispers, her sister's voice, her sister's strength, her sister's love, the ghost of what once was and what was lost. Jinx hides it in laughter. She buries it in chaos. But deep within, she cannot forget. To step into Jinx's mind is to step into contradiction. She is playful, yet dangerous. She is joyous, yet grieving. She is free, yet haunted. Her chaos is not aimless. It is escape. Escape from silence, from memory, from the ache of being left behind. And so she fills the silence with laughter. She fills the air with sparks and fire. She fills the world with her name, her mark, her voice. Because if the world is loud enough, if the colors are bright enough, if the explosions are big enough, perhaps the silence inside will never return. This is Jinx, not simply a criminal, not simply chaos, but a girl whose mind became her storm, and in her storm, she found freedom. By now, the name Jinx was known across Piltover and Zaun alike. Children whispered it in games. Merchants cursed it when their shops shook with explosions. Enforcers spat it in frustration when yet another trap unraveled before their eyes. Jinx was no longer just a restless girl. She was a force. And Piltover felt her chaos most of all. There was the bridge, a grand structure of Piltover's pride, lined with brass railings, lamps that glowed in warm light, gears turning beneath to raise and lower its spans for passing ships. It was more than stone and steel. It was a symbol of Piltover's order, of its progress, of its belief that all things could be controlled. One night, laughter echoed across its arches. Workers reported seeing streaks of blue darting through the lamps, strange contraptions left clattering along the railings. A trail of paint splashed in mocking faces and jagged stars. Then the explosions began. Not enough to bring the bridge down, not enough to destroy it fully, but enough to crack stone, to shatter glass, to send enforcers scrambling as the night filled with sparks and color. Above it all, Jinx's laughter carried across the waters, bright, wild, unstoppable. By dawn, the bridge still stood, but it bore scars, painted, scorched, mocked. Piltover raged, Zaun whispered, and Jinx laughed all the louder. There was the warehouse, a place where Piltover stored shipments of hextech crystals, carefully guarded, carefully catalogued, crystals that powered inventions, fueled progress, kept the gears of Piltover turning. One morning, the warehouse doors were found open. Guards lay tied in mocking knots, their uniforms painted with glowing ink. And inside, chaos, crates overturned, crystals missing, graffiti sprayed in neon colors across every surface. At the center of it all, one phrase painted over and over, glowing, bright, undeniable. Jinx was here, and there were the fireworks. Not the gentle bursts of celebration, but fireworks of chaos. Factories suddenly lit by flares of pink and blue, showers of sparks falling into the streets. Markets plunged into chaos as strange contraptions rattled and exploded, sending stalls flying, food scattering, people shouting in panic and laughter alike. Even Piltover's council chambers were not safe. One morning, as the sun rose, the sky above their towers burst into glowing letters, painted by fire itself. You can't catch me. These were not battles, not wars, not even crimes in the way Piltover wished to understand them. They were performances, each clash a stage, each explosion a song, each mocking word a signature. And Jinx was the star. Yet not all who watched laughed, for with each act, the enforcers grew more determined. Caitlin traced her steps, her sharp eyes seeing patterns where none seemed to exist. Vi clenched her gauntleted fists, her jaw set, her heart heavy with every reminder that her sister was lost to chaos. They pursued her across bridges, through alleys, across rooftops and factories. They cornered her more than once. But always, at the last moment, the smoke burst, the laughter echoed, and Jinx was gone. Every clash left scars on the city. and every clash left scars on those who chased her. Still, the legend grew. In Zaun, her name was shouted as children painted walls in neon, copying her marks. In Piltover, her name was whispered in council halls, cursed in enforcer barracks, feared in merchant homes. And Jinx herself reveled in it all, for chaos was her canvas, and the city was her stage. Legends are not always born from victory. Sometimes they are born from chaos, from laughter, from a spark that refuses to die. And so it was with Jinx. In Zaun, her story spread first. Whispers passed in alleys, laughter carried across bridges, graffiti glowing in neon colors. To some, she was a symbol of freedom, proof that no matter how tight Piltover's grip became, Zaun would never be chained. She mocked the rich. She rattled the proud. She turned the clean order of Piltover into trembling uncertainty. Children of Zaun painted her marks upon walls, racing through alleys with toy guns and broken gadgets, pretending to be her, laughing in the way she laughed. Wild, reckless, unstoppable. Mothers warned their children with her name. Fathers cursed her when their work was disrupted by her chaos. Merchants groaned when her pranks turned profits into rubble. But none could forget her. She was everywhere, and Zaun itself seemed to laugh with her. Pipes bursting, sparks flying, machines clattering as if the city itself played along. In Piltover, her legend grew differently. She was not a symbol, but a shadow, a constant reminder that their perfect order was fragile, that their bright towers stood always at the edge of chaos. Her wanted posters multiplied. Council meetings grew heated with her name. Merchants demanded more guards, more weapons, more hextech tools to stop her. To Piltover, she was not simply Jinx. She was the embodiment of all they feared about Zaun. Uncontrolled, untamed, unpredictable. And in that fear, she became larger than life. Beyond the Twin Cities, the stories spread further. Sailors carried tales of her explosions across the coasts. Merchants repeated stories of neon graffiti that mocked counselors by name. Travelers told of a girl with bright eyes and wild laughter, running across rooftops, carrying weapons too large for her frame. In taverns, her name was spoken with awe, with fear, with wonder. Some claimed she was a spirit of chaos, not human at all. Others swore she could appear and vanish in smoke, faster than eyes could follow. Some even said she could not die, for how could laughter itself be slain? And Jinx knew of these stories. She read her wanted posters, laughed as she painted over them. She listened to the whispers, the curses, the praises, and laughed all the louder. She fueled the tales with every act, every spark, every explosion. Her legend was no longer hers alone. It belonged to the cities, to the people, to the world. But legends are not gentle. For every child who dreamed of her freedom, another feared her laughter in the night. For every merchant who cursed her, another secretly admired her defiance. For every enforcer who swore to catch her, another wondered if such chaos could ever truly be stopped. Jinx had become more than a girl, more than a sister, more than an outlaw. She had become a legend of fire and paint, of laughter and madness, of freedom and fear. And like all legends, she would never be forgotten. Every act leaves a shadow, every spark leaves a glow, every laugh leaves an echo, and Jinx left echoes everywhere she went. In Zaun, her wake was color and fire. Walls once gray now glowed with her graffiti, jagged letters, painted faces, marks of rebellion. Alleys once silent now carried her laughter, replayed in memory, whispered by children who copied her voice. Markets once orderly now waited nervously, never knowing when a crate might burst with powder, when sparks might scatter their goods into the air. Some cursed her, some praised her, but none could ignore her. Merchants adapted, keeping their stalls lighter, ready to flee at the first sound of her laugh. Workers told stories in the evenings of times they had seen her dart across rooftops, or felt the shock of her explosions shake the ground. Children grew braver, wilder, pretending every broken toy was a Jinx invention, pretending every prank was her blessing. Zaun itself seemed different, louder, brighter, more restless, as though the city too had taken on her spirit. In Piltover, her wake was fear. Counselors debated late into the night, voices raised, fists pounding on polished tables. Enforcers doubled their patrols, boots striking harder against cobblestones, eyes sharper as they searched the shadows. Inventors designed new weapons, new defenses, new ways to hold back the chaos that slipped into their streets. But for all their effort, the fear remained. For Jinx was not an army that could be fought, not a rebellion that could be crushed. She was one girl, slipping through cracks, laughing as she vanished into smoke, and that was what frightened them most. Order could withstand armies, but could it withstand one restless spark? Her wake reached further still. Merchants carried her name to distant lands. Travelers spoke of her in taverns, her story growing brighter, wilder with every telling. Sailors described fireworks that lit the skies above Piltover's harbor, so bright that they could be seen far out at sea. In Ionia, her story was told as a parable of chaos. In Noxus, some admired her defiance, though others dismissed her as foolishness. In Demacia, her name was whispered as a warning, the danger of unrestrained freedom, and so across Runeterra her laughter carried. But Jinx herself did not dwell on her wake. She laughed, she ran, she created, she destroyed. She did not pause to wonder what she had left behind. And perhaps that was why her legend grew all the larger. For those who live without care for consequence leave the deepest echoes of all. The world bent around her. Zaun adapted to her color. Piltover adapted to her fear. Runeterra adapted to her legend. And Jinx herself adapted to nothing. She remained unstoppable, unpredictable, unforgettable. The world changed in her wake, but Jinx only laughed. And so we drift to the end of our story, the tale of Jinx, wild, restless, unforgettable, a child of Zaun, a sister of Vi, a spark of laughter in smoke and shadow. She ran where others walked. She painted where others feared to touch. She laughed where silence pressed heavy. And in her chaos, she left behind legend. Her story is not one of peace, not one of calm, and yet, told in this way, softly, slowly, gently, it becomes something different. A lullaby of sparks, a dream of laughter carried on the night air, a reminder that even the wildest chaos can, at last, become soft enough to carry us into sleep. The city of Zaun quiets now in your mind. The pipes no longer hiss. The markets no longer shout. The factories fall silent, their smoke drifting away into still night air. Piltover, too, grows still. The gears cease their turning. The bells grow quiet. The streets, once alive with boots and voices, rest under the calm of starlight. And above it all, the laughter of Jinx fades into memory. A sound that once shook the city, now softened, distant, like a dream you are slowly forgetting as sleep carries you deeper. You have walked her story. You have drifted through her world. You have heard her laughter, seen her colors, felt her chaos. And now it is time to let go, time to drift, time to rest, time to sleep. Welcome, always, to dream calm. Good night.